Hey there, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia Season 6 review. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, episode 22, Friend, which picks up in the aftermath of Deku's battle with Lady Nagant, and shows the effect that the solo hero journey has had on Deku, both physically and mentally. So it's a pretty heavy episode this time, with one of the biggest teaser endings of the season, so there's a lot to talk about. But before we do that, I will just remind you that I have read the manga, and I'm aware of any relevant future plot points and details, but for the purpose of these reviews, I prefer to talk about things from an anime-only perspective. That way, anime-only fans can watch along and join in too, and so with all that being said, let's jump into things. So we start off the episode with a quick recap, where we see Lady Nagant, who'd been burnt to a crisp by the secret self-destruct quirk that All For One had planted on her, repeating what she'd said last episode about where All For One can be found, which is the mansion that once housed the Creature Rejection clan who was slaughtered by Shigaraki and the League of Villains before they fought against the Liberation Army and took control. And so, yeah, a fair while since we've seen that place. Anyway, Deku and the team assemble, and I gotta wonder, would this even have been enough heroes if he was here? I mean, don't they think that this is the location of two of the most powerful villains in Japan, alongside a bunch of near high-end Nomu, and potentially the rest of the League of Villains? Even if it had come down to a battle, could the heroes have won? I'm not actually that sure. After all, they have a bunch of super powerful characters here, but a lot of them would be working hurt, working tired, still recovering from their injuries. I mean, has enough time passed? I mean, Deku seems to think so. And in fact, it feels like he thinks that he could solo the whole mansion, and you know what, maybe he could. And perhaps the villains think so too, because they're nowhere to be found, and instead there's a bomb in the mansion. Kaboom. And nobody dies, of course, except for Deku's mental health, because honestly, the dude has to be close to running on fumes by this point. He doesn't strike me as somebody who handles being isolated and cut off very well at all. Also, do explosions even matter in this world? I swear everybody is surviving them. And it makes me wonder, how is Bakugou's quirk even a threat if explosions are apparently harmless? I mean, hell, they have to be harmless. I mean, shouldn't his arms shatter when he makes explosions come out of his hands? Wouldn't his eardrums be perforated regularly? Yeah, whatever. I tell you what though, from this scene, besides the annoying explosion that did nothing, I did love how All For One just leaves a pre-recorded hologram. He talks mad shit at Deku, he laughs at his worldview, he calls All Might an oaf and mocks his words to Deku. You know, the now it's your turn words, and then he just refuses to elaborate further and blows up the house. Top tier villain shit right there. We then have the intro theme and return to find the adult heroes all chilling in some warehouse, having a bit of a sook that their latest attempt to find All For One has failed. Although I will say, it's pretty damn convenient for them that literally none of them are injured or anything like that. And I know I mentioned it before, but Jesus, not even a scratch? I mean, how fast did the explosion happen? How did they all react in time? Plot armor. They then discuss Lady Nagant and whether they can get in more information from her, but Hawks tells them that it's very unlikely, and then it's apparently a surprise that she's even alive. And yeah, I mean, of course, she exploded from inside her body, or from every cell of her body. Either way, she is only alive because she's probably going to be plot relevant in the future. There's literally no other reason or explanation than that. And at least the show is self-aware enough to realize that she should have died. There's no reason for her to have survived, beyond we want to keep her around. So there's that. Edgeshot then tells Endeavor that he thinks that he needs to share the secret of One For All, so that it isn't just a select few that know the secret, but every hero. As in all honesty, it'll let them coordinate more effectively to find and defeat All For One. And when you think about it, he is kind of right. We know from Deku that All For One isn't strong enough to fight back just yet. He's still trying to assimilate with Shigaraki, and thus, they do need to find him as soon as they can. However, despite this, it's also clear that Deku's going to have to continue being the focus of all these efforts. He's going to have to continue being hunted by agents of All For One, so whilst it would help in the search to have more people involved, it also wouldn't really reduce the strain on Deku, because ultimately, they need these agents to attack Deku for them to get the information about All For One. But if he has half the heroes of Japan watching his back, that's not going to be possible. No one's going to be able to get close. But then, on the other hand, heroes are quitting in droves. They're overworked and they're getting a lot of public backlash. It's making their sacrifices seem like it's not worth it anymore. This extra strain could just make the issue worse. And I really enjoy how realistic this all feels. How they have to balance out all these different variables, and how it's quite clear that there's not one single clear-cut solution to the problem. And that's not something you often see in shows, really. Usually there's a clear, correct solution, but all the characters are hit with the idiot stick and they become very stubborn. But this isn't the case here, and that's nice. Anyway, one of the big losses for the heroes recently is Death Arms, who's been a fixture of the show as a background hero since like episode 1, season 1. And he's played an important role in the recent war arc when he led the arrest of traitor heroes. And now he's just gone, quit. So yeah, that's actually a pretty sad little story moment. Seeing a character that's always sort of just been there, suddenly just go away with a sad ending to his arc. Damn. Anyway, because even heroes like Death Arms are quitting, Endeavor thinks it's way too risky to inform anybody else about Deku and One for All. After all, it could very easily backfire if a hero learns about it, then quits his job and then leaks shit to the press, which apparently heroes have been doing. And of course, this in turn will have the flow-on effect to mean that Deku is very much working alone with very little backup at all. And we see this in action in the very next scene, where they learn that Deku came into contact with the next hired gun, so a villain that's likely on a similar caliber to Lady Nagant, and he destroyed him. Got the instant win. As after all, now he's able to fight like prime 100% All Might. And he was a Chad. He was the symbol of peace. But the only problem is Deku is still very young and untested, and he doesn't have the same grit that All Might developed. And at the same time, he's relatively young, and yet he's been worn away by a lot of traumatic events in short succession. And he also doesn't have the legions of other heroes to fall back on like All Might did when he was in his prime. And so now, it's all clearly starting to affect his physical and mental well-being, and he's even stopped eating All Might's cute little packed lunches, which is a true tragedy. And on top of that, he even tells All Might to straight up go away. He doesn't want to put him at risk, and he remembers Night Eye's warning that eventually, All Might will come up against a villain who will kill him. Brutally. And yeah, this scene's very sad, and I don't know, it feels very bittersweet. Because on one hand, you have All Might, who's raised this kid up as his successor, but he's now feeling like he's failed Deku completely. He promised to be there for this kid, but he's being told to leave. And he can see that Deku's continuing to run himself into the ground. And then you have Deku himself, who's grown up trying to emulate All Might, to be All Might. And thus he won't stop. He feels like it's his responsibility to keep on going until the crisis is over. And so he'll keep on going until his fuel tank's empty, which, yeah, it doesn't bode well for him. And so I really like that they're showing the harsh reality of this sort of thing. The mental health side of thing, the isolation, despair. It's quite compelling. Also, we're finally going to get to see a Stain All Might interaction. And I mean, Stain has been desperate in the past to get killed by his true love All Might, so it'll be interesting to see what he thinks of him now that he's Small Might. Moving on, we see more of Deku, who's clearly running on fumes at this stage, and has slowly become more and more despondent and depressed. He's no longer the hero with a smile to encourage others and inspire them, he just saves them. He speaks to them in a dead voice and he just moves along. He's sluggish and tired and overworked. And it's clear that despite him being a bit of a legend off the back of all this, he's also nearing the end of his tether. To the point that even the other wielders in the Vestige Realm are looking at him, thinking that maybe he needs to slow down and rest. His wounds aren't healed, he's tired and alone. And instead of being a true hero, he's now looked on as frightening by the people that he's trying to save. People don't sprint away from All Might screaming. And honestly, it's a sad decline from what he wanted to be originally. He's becoming more and more obsessed with capturing All for One, stopping Shigaraki and stopping the League of Villains. Obsessed with ensuring that nobody else gets hurt, and thus he's basically setting himself on fire to keep everybody else warm. At least that's until he comes across a villain that he's not able to fight anymore, simply because he's too worn down both physically and mentally, as we see in the very next scene, where he's almost too tired to stand and fight, and his brain can't come up with a strategy to defeat the villain, whilst also protecting the innocent people that the villain's controlling. Once again, really love this. It's a dark take on the hero's journey. So many heroes do this thing. They go off alone to save their friends and family. And whilst eventually they reconcile and all, they rarely get to a point where they're so completely lost and alone like this. It's quite powerful. And thus, this scene where he's getting swarmed, it's extremely depressing and sad. It really plays on your emotions, and thus it makes the moment where Bakugou swoops in out of nowhere and one-shots the villain so much more exciting and uplifting. And then when the word friend flashes across the screen, as the second user's voice echoes, saying that a friend is exactly what Deku needs to keep himself going, you just can't help but get hyped up and honestly a little bit emotional. Not too much, but a little. I love this scene. And then we cut away to see the aftermath of Deku's letter to everybody in the class. And here's where we see Bakugou's redemption arc really come full circle, going from a cruel bully to a begrudging ally, to sacrificing himself to protect Deku, and now to being the person who knows Deku best. The person that can predict how he'll react, how All Might will interact with Deku, and how they're the worst possible duo to ever go off on their own. Neither of them knows how to quit, and so All Might doesn't really understand how to talk Deku down when he's in a mood, when he's whipped himself up into this self-righteous frenzy. And so this scene's actually a great reminder of just how smart and intuitive Bakugou can be, but it's also a masterclass in writing. Because who would have thought you could take this character that told Deku in episode 1 to kill himself just for being quirkless, and over the course of a few seasons, give him so much depth. Ah, it's just great writing. Anyway, the class teams up with the principal to trick Endeavor into meeting with them all, and then Shoto and Bakugou rip him a new one and pretty much force him to let the class help. As after all, Bakugou says that Deku's fully insane, and he never stops, and neither does All Might, and so it's going to be an endless feedback loop that only ends with Deku unable to continue and becoming easy pickings for the villains. And honestly, this feels like it could have been All for One's plan all along. Just keep pushing Deku to the limit, make him easy to subdue, and then, knock him out, put him on ice, and steal his quirk when you're back at full strength and he's at no strength, or if that fails, I suppose you could just kill him outright and end the quirk forever. Either way, All for One wins. Anyway, the class then teams up to convince Endeavor that they should be allowed to help as well, and their words inspire him, and also, my god, Ida's voice actor. He was awesome in this scene. One of the coolest sounding voices in the entire show. So manly. There's just no other way to describe it. It just oozes this masculine energy. But, I do find it weird to say like that, but it's just how I feel. And then we had some very wholesome vibes as well, as the principal says that Deku, regardless of his enrollment status, will always have a place at UA, under their protection. And he tells the students that they can go out to bring him back, and they will protect him, regardless of what All for One wants to do. This show has so many wholesome mentor characters. I really love it. I feel like so many animes have mentors that just say shit like, oh yes, 12-year-old, it's alright for you to go into life and death situations with no backup at all. Everything will be fine. Demon Slayer, I'm looking at you, mate. So here, it's great to see adults that actually, act like adults and care enough about their charges to look out for them. Even if they can't keep them out of danger completely, they're still willing to go all out to protect the youngsters. Excellent. And yeah, then we finish with a pretty epic standoff scene where Class 1A confronts Deku, calls him stupid, and then they all square up to fight him, as Deku is planning to try to give them the slip. And I feel like this scene, this next episode, this is going to be epic. I can feel it now. Also, before we end, I also want to acknowledge that I love how Bakugou is really integrated into the class so much. Specifically yelling at Momo for using his real name instead of his cringy new hero name. It was quite a funny moment. But yeah, anyway, that's the end of the episode and the end of the video. And I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.